42 years ago, I lost my brother to heroin. He had become a very bad day-to-day heroin addict. In his case, as a result of our losing our mother very suddenly at a very young age, and when my brother Stephen was 18. Today, there are 44,000 deaths from drug overdoses every year, and we're going to be talking today on the show how we can prevent that and what we could do about the people who tragically already are drug addicts. This is Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog, and I'm Bruce Apar. Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog is brought to you by Chase Media Group. And I thank the CEO of Chase Media Group, Carla Chase, and the Chief Strategy Officer, Frank J. Rich, for bringing the show to you. And by the way, you could also see all the past shows on YouTube by searching for Hudson Valley WXYZ or searching for Bruce the Blog. And we bring you outstanding citizens who are making unique contributions to our quality of life, some of the people you even may know as neighbors or just from the community. We also like to explore ideas and issues and comment on them that are important to all of us. And in that regard, there is nothing more important than the lives of our children and of everybody. And that's what we're going to be discussing on the show. I have two people here who have committed themselves very seriously and very extensively to doing something about this, and they've been able in a short period of time to get a lot of other people behind them to help in that cause. And so let me welcome to your left, I always have to be careful with TV, it's like a mirror. To your left is Yorktown Councilman Tom Diana, who I've had on the show before. Welcome, Tom.
Good morning, Bruce.
And also chair of Yorktown Against Heroin.
Yes.
And to your right is Mike Reda, who is the co-chair of Yorktown Against Heroin, and you're in law enforcement, right, Mike?
Correct.
Yourself. And the full name of the group is, just so everybody knows,
Yorktown Citizens Task Force Against Heroin.
Right, Yorktown Citizens Task Force Against Heroin. So this happens to be in the town of Yorktown in northern Westchester, but are there other groups that you know of in other towns in the Hudson Valley, or I'm not aware of them?
As far as I know, there are numerous groups that go after addiction,
Right.
Whether it's alcohol or drug related.
Right.
But this is a grassroots hometown
Right.
segment of this that we're basically heroin consistent. You know,
Right.
we want to get rid of this.
Yeah, you're focused on heroin because it's become epidemic. You know,
Correct.
with people very young. I mean, my brother was 18, as I said, when our mother passed, and over the next 13, 14 years, he became a bad heroin addict, and ultimately in 1973 died as a result of that. I just want to put on the table some statistics that maybe some people watching are aware of, but in all likelihood, most people would not necessarily be aware of this if it hasn't touched them directly. But one of these statistics is that since '99, overall drug deaths have doubled, but specifically with heroin have quadrupled, which is astonishing. And there's some of the numbers, which I know, Mike, you put up a lot of information on the Facebook page for the group. This is where I got the information from. 670,000 people use heroin. And then again, with drug overdoses in general, there are 2.7 deaths per 10,000 people as of a couple of years ago. And one way people may relate to this is about a year and a half ago, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was considered like the greatest actor of his generation, died of a heroin overdose.
Yeah.
You know, you think somebody, he was, you know, he had fame, he had fortune, and you know, that doesn't mean anything, obviously. I mean, people get depressed for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah, it attacks every economic, every social background. It doesn't have any boundaries at all, you know.
And as you know, as you two are demonstrating through all the good work you're doing, you know, in the suburbs, you know, think the quiet suburbs of northern Westchester, it is a really serious problem, right?
In fact, we had one of the specialists come on, Dr. Kolodny, and the statistics he's shown, it's scary.
Yeah, yeah.
We actually had one person who came forward at one of our meetings, and the story had a happy ending, but the beginning part of the story was troubling because the person was 8 years old when she first experimented with heroin.
And why don't you talk a little bit, Mike, about why you got involved in this group with Tom, you know, and formed the group? I mean, what was your impetus?
Well, Tom is actually the one who formed
Started it, yeah.
During his election, he made a promise that win or lose, he was going forward with this. And I believe in Tom, and I believe in his cause, and that's why I joined him. When we were out campaigning, one of the biggest things people were talking about was the drug problem in Yorktown, the heroin in Yorktown, the overdoses in Yorktown. And I shared a story with Tom, and I'll share it with you. At the time, my son was 9, and I was driving, and he said to me, "Dad, what's heroin?" And that's just not something that I felt comfortable with a 9-year-old asking a father. It's not, I didn't know about it at 9 years old.
Right.
So, but I want to give a lot of respect to Tom for keeping his word and pushing this forward, because without him, we wouldn't be doing this today.
Right. And that is something else we should mention is that, Tom, you were elected to office as on the town board of Yorktown this past March 2015 in a special election. And as Mike said, one of your campaign promises, as it were, right, was, and you, here we are in June, and this already has a lot of momentum. So you did get this off the ground very quickly, and you've gotten a lot of support. And our favorite son, you might say, who is a state senator now, Terrence Murphy, has also been instrumental, right?
Yes, he was instrumental in getting the state senate involved in this, and you know, to get this going with me in Yorktown. He's been a wonderful ally, friend, and supporter. And might I just say that, you know, without Mike as my right hand, you know, this wouldn't be as far as it is now. I mean, he's done an awesome job with what he does, and thank you, Mike, for that. But yes, heroin is a terrible thing, not only townwide but statewide.
Right.
And Senator Murphy is doing an awesome job on getting the word out and getting education about it out there, and getting legislation enacted.
And there is this state senate, right, task force.
Yes.
That is he the chair of that, or he's one of the chairs?
Well, he's
isn't
the
he?
co-chair.
He's the co-chair. Yeah. The State Senate Joint Task Force on Heroin and Opioid Addiction, and they've been holding forums around the state.
Hearings
Yes.
throughout New York
Right.
State.
Yeah. And we also should mention the bill that he sponsored, and I believe it passed, right? It did pass, the bill that he sponsored that allows, I'm reading from the statement or the press release, that the legislation passed allows law enforcement to charge a drug dealer with homicide if a person dies from an opiate-controlled substance sold by the dealer.
Yes.
So somebody's actually selling it to somebody who dies. That person who sold it could be accused of homicide.
Yes.
Charged with homicide.
You'd be charged with that.
Yeah. I mean, you would hope that would be just a further disincentive. I mean, I don't know. These days, people do crazy things despite the consequences. So that's hard to say. But what have you done so far? Like, I know you have meetings and you have an affiliation with the Yorktown Elks Lodge, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so how does that work?
When we started this, Councilman Diana actually was asked to take over their existing program.
Oh, okay.
So
Right,
we
yeah.
actually are chairing both committees at this time. And the Elks have been fabulous with us.
So you use their headquarters in Yorktown, right, for the meetings?
Yes.
And how frequently do you have the meetings?
Monthly, usually the last Wednesday.
Every month?
Yeah. Generally, it's the last Wednesday. This one happens to be Monday because of other things that are going on within town.
So June 22nd is the
Yeah.
next meeting, right?
You know, you have the fireman's parade, school
Right.
is ending, so on and so forth. And you know, like I said, I couldn't have gotten as far as I have with this, as far as we have with this project, without the help of the Elks, Supervisor Grace, the men and women on my board, Judge Lagonia, Judge Raniolo, and
And in fact, those are on, they're on the Yorktown Against Heroin board,
correct.
right? Yes.
Yes, that's right. I should specify.
Well, Greg Bernard, who is another councilman.
And
with
Greg
you.
also, yes.
And like you said, the two town justices, the Honorable Sal Lagonia and the Honorable Gary Raniola, and the supervisor, Michael Grace,
Yep, we
is
have our
on it.
Chief of Police.
Right,
Dan
Chief
McMahon.
Dan McMahon, yeah.
And
then
Chief
you,
Also
Hodges
Chief
out of
John
Westchester County.
oh, John Hodges, right. He's the Westchester County Chief of Police? or-
He's
Inspector.
Chief Inspector.
Chief Inspector, right.
Yep. And we have
And then, is it Amanda?
Allison Haviland.
Allison
Allison
Haviland.
Haviland, yeah.
Yeah.
And what is her role or background?
she is she has a long title.
Oh, okay, well, that's,
and it's preventive services that she does it was for Putnam County.
oh, okay.
So she's actually the one that would go into a case manager for preventive services. I believe is her
Oh, I see.
exact
Right.
title.
Right.
And she's the one that actually goes into these places where people have been
Like treatment
convicted
centers or?
of crimes, and
Right.
she has to, make sure that they
Like
get
a social
drug tested.
worker, sort of like a social
Similar,
worker, yeah,
yes,
right,
yes,
right.
yeah. But she's
Yeah.
not a social worker.
Right,
And we also brought on board TJ McCormick, who's been our Director of Communications,
Right.
who also works for Senator Murphy.
Yeah.
And
Right.
doing
He's
a
our
good
lead
job.
on
there.
his staff, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And we should read, it's a concise statement, the mission statement of Yorktown Citizens Task Force Against Heroin, and your tagline, which is very direct, is information, education, elimination, the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah.
And the mission statement reads, our mission is to provide information and foster educational awareness of the epidemic use of heroin. The board of the task force consists of local elected officials, both town justices, law enforcement personnel, and members of our community. It is imperative that we all work together to eliminate this horrendous drug. So when you do have the monthly meetings that you've been holding, you've had how many? Three so far?
Three. Monday
Right.
will be our fourth.
Right.
Yeah.
At the Yorktown Elks Lodge in Yorktown. So what happens at the meetings? What goes on there in general?
The first meeting was an informational meeting, basically, to see what people had on their minds. Our second meeting, we had, and it started small. We started with 12 people in the audience. The next meeting was about 22. The third meeting was almost 50, or was above 50 at that point,
yeah,
close to 50.
approximately.
Wow.
50 people.
Wow.
So people are getting the word.
Right.
The last meeting we had a renowned doctor, Dr. Kolodny, who actually spoke of this epidemic. And might I just reinforce that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has deemed this an epidemic of epidemic proportion.
Really?
This isn't
I mean,
just
nationwide.
nationwide.
Right. Yeah. Right.
He showed, and I wish I had the graph with me, of where it was in earlier years to where it was and now on a color map, and it's taken over most of the country. It's a shame. And it starts out with your opiate-based pills. And if you think
Prescription
of
pills.
prescription
Yeah,
pills,
right. Like
a lot of it
oxycodone.
starts.
Yeah. Right.
And as he calls them, he says it's pill form heroin. Pretty simple. When you put it to somebody like that, I think it just makes it clear as a bell on what
Right.
this substance is.
So you're saying that's the gateway drug, so to speak.
Yep, marijuana, then to that sometimes,
Right.
depending on the person. And it goes much deeper. It goes into, such as, unfortunately, with your brother and the loss of your mother.
Right.
It was a depression type
Because
of
psychological reasons or issues, yeah.
There's
right.
there's weight, there's obesity, there's school issues, there's a myriad of things that
And I would imagine
trigger
too,
it.
with teenagers being teenagers, in some cases it's just kicks, right? Just a high, right?
Some of it is
They-
just
they
the
just-
kicks,
yeah.
and when they
Peer
go-
pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot is proven with the peer pressure.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with lack of confidence and self-respect in the kids.
Right. So do you try to address that at all? But again, now we're talking about prevention as well as
Yes.
treatment. Is like with lack of self-esteem or lack of self-respect. I mean, we know it exists, but it's very tough, right, to figure out how to reverse it or how to overcome it.
Yes,
right?
it absolutely is, and we've started out. Now we've partnered with Yorktown Youth Soccer Club.
Right.
Rick Romansky had come to us and asked us if we could help him start a program that would educate, and we welcomed the idea, to a man such as Rick Romansky who would say, look, I want to make a little 5-minute presentation mandatory to the kids and or parents,
Right.
just to give them an idea of what's there and how they can identify and deal with this situation. And Mike, to his credit, has brought in a martial arts person that's going to be doing some speaking, and I'm going to let him go on to describing the criteria that they follow in training from 4 to whatever age they go up to. So that would be-
interesting. Yeah. He's going to come into one of the meetings.
He's actually going to be there Monday night.
Monday.
Yeah.
He's one of the founders of Krav Maga New York out of Somers.
Oh, okay.
He used to be based in Front Street in Yorktown.
Oh,
moved
what's his
into
name?
Dave Christina.
Yes, I remember him. Yes. Right.
And when my 9-year-old was 4, I had shopped around different places to see what we felt comfortable with, and someone recommended Dave. And from the day I went there, I believed in what he does. And
Right.
similar to what Rick wants to do with the kids, they take the hour block, and the first 45 minutes will be for self-defense, and then the next 15 minutes will be about modesty and about courtesy, about self-respect, confidence, and discipline. And the further we've dug into this, we've found from prior law enforcement, from people who study the martial art, that they feel that kids that are in martial arts are less likely to experiment because they have that, they have that
Well,
confidence about
and
themselves,
discipline.
and they're disciplined,
Yeah.
and they're not afraid to stand up and say no when they're
Right.
being singled out or bullied. And
Right.
I think
So I
it's a
mean,
good
so
fit.
that's a good point in talking about how to direct them away from, issues of lack of self-esteem. I mean, obviously, sports is always one of the, the primary paths, as well as, by the way, what some of the things I like to do, as well as the performing arts.
Yes.
Anything that's creative and constructive and that puts you together with other people, in that kind of a social context, that makes you feel that you have more self-worth or that you're being productive, right? I mean, I guess any programs like that you can get behind are going to help reduce, eliminate is tough, but at least reduce the epidemic, right?
Yeah, and we have to start with our youth, and if we can start at age 4, which the Yorktown Youth Soccer does,
Right.
they then go a few years to school, then they get DARE in 5th grade.
5th grade.
Right.
But the unfortunate part of it is that once they're done with DARE, there's basically nothing or little
Right. That's
between there
right.
and the time they graduate high school. I shouldn't
Right.
say there's nothing, because there are programs out there that the school districts are doing through health classes, et cetera. But
Right. No, but that's a very good point, Tom. Is that there's a gap, right?
Yes.
There's a gap, and I know Supervisor Grace has talked about this on a number of occasions. DARE is a great program, but then you have this vacuum when, in some other ways, those students at that age are most vulnerable, right? they're most vulnerable to peer pressure.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, the DARE program is in their rearview mirror, and now they're susceptible to all
Yes.
these very bad influences. I mean, right? That's,
You have to keep attention, and attention span of young adults. So I'm going to use young adults.
yeah. Right.
Has become focused to the multimedia area.
Right.
So that's where I think we have to target getting the information to these young adults and work at it from there.
Right.
And that's going to be a challenge.
And when you were talking about prescription pills before, there was also a story. I know Mike has done a great job with the Facebook page Yorktown Against Heroin, putting up a lot of articles and statistics that are in the articles, and there was the one that was from USA Today about this young man who said, I think when he was 8 years old, or if I'm not mistaken, he started taking prescription pill. Yeah, Mike McCorkin, this is from USA Today, says he began smoking marijuana and taking pills at age 12 and graduated to heroin by 14. And his story is really compelling. And I like to say it's shocking. The sad part is these things are becoming less shocking in the sense that we hear about them more often, or too often. But he tells the story of what I guess turned him around was I think it was his stepfather, if I'm not mistaken, was in the bathroom and they heard him collapse or fall down, and he and his mother went in and he was dead. And before this young man, who was also a bad addict at that point, and his mother called 911, they used the rest of the drugs that the dead man had in his pocket.
Oh my.
And they said, and when I was watching the video, and he said he says he almost realized in that moment, like, this is about as low as I could get. And now, to his enormous credit, he's actually an official in this treatment center. I believe it's in Boston? It's in New England. But he's still a relatively young man, and he's not only turned himself around, but he now is helping other people. And one of the things he says is that when he was trying to get into detox, a detox center, it's the classic catch-22. He says you couldn't get in if you had drugs in your body at the time. You had to actually, if you were drug-free, you couldn't get into detox. You had to have drugs in your system to get in.
Yeah.
And so I guess there's a lot of issues like that, right?
Yeah, that's part of the issues that are being worked at this point in time with, I believe, at the Senate level. They're trying to get, they're doing legislation to allow insurance companies to pay a little further and so forth. So the actual rules to get into the detox centers are all probably differing.
Oh, they are? Right.
I
guess maybe depending on state. Is it maybe state by state?
It's probably state by state, county by county. So it's hard to say which way New York State would be at this time. It might even be facility to facility.
Right.
They may take somebody in that is high at that point in time and detox them. I guess there's all different classifications.
But again, that article, by the way, said that only 11% of the almost 23 million Americans who needed drug or alcohol treatment in 2013 got it. 11%.
It's nothing.
I mean, that's a very bad statistic there.
Bruce, one thing you said two things that were really important that we're trying to get out there. The more people that we're speaking to, whether they're recovering addicts or parents, grandparents, friends, is the age.
Yes, right.
They're starting at an age of 8 and above.
Right.
And it's a hard thing to grasp, especially as a father of a 9-year-old. I can't relate to that, but it's a fact.
Yeah.
And that's what me and Tom are trying to get out there, that
Right.
you may not be able to explain, if we go ahead with the Yorktown Youth Soccer and start talking to the kids, you may not be able to explain to a 4-year-old about drugs. But there are other qualities that you could talk about to build them up to be better people.
Right.
And to know what's right from wrong. So the age is something that we want to hit on. And the other thing, which Tom is working on, is the prescription drugs. We've heard stories from people that friends will go to friends' houses that know of people that had surgeries because they know people keep prescription drugs in their medicine cabinet, and they'll go in and take them.
Steal them.
Steal them.
Yeah. Right.
So Tom's working on something right now where we can get actually, Tom could explain it if you like, but to get them out of your house.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's that, and what you're saying, Mike, too. Brings up that old expression: the best. Well, what is it now? I'm going to get it backwards. Is it the best defense is a good offense, or the best offense?
The best offense
is a good defense. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And that's where I was going with it. The best offense is a good defense, meaning, as you said, Mike, early on, create substitutions, positive substitutions, so that they don't think about or have any reason to go to drugs. Right.
Yeah. I can't stress strongly enough to everybody to get your old drugs out of your medicine cabinets. Right now, ASK has put in, ASK, the Alliance for Safe Kids, has put in a drop box in the Yorktown Police headquarters. And the Yorktown Police empty that on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day. To expand on that, the Yorktown Task Force is in the process of getting a decommissioned mailbox, which we will possibly go on the, pardon the expression, but on the road with, where we would go, we'll say, okay, we'll be at the Hart Library on Tuesday, just for argument's sake. Or most likely be a Saturday, but we'll be at the Hart Library on Saturday from 12 to 2, okay? And it will be there, and there will be somebody with it. Drop your drugs. Get
drugs
your
there, right?
Yeah. Drop your drugs in the box. They'll go right to police headquarters. There'll be a chain of evidence. No names, no questions asked. Get them out of the house. It would be the best thing you could do for anybody for the summertime, because kids explore in the summertime, and they're going to explore places that you don't think that they normally do, and the medicine cabinet could be one of them. Right.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but I also just wanted to quickly touch on that the drug that now is being used, and I believe also this was a recent development where to help prevent, or when somebody goes into overdose, to prevent death.
Yes.
How do you pronounce naloxone or naloxone? Or
yes.
Yeah, right. Now that law enforcement is now allowed to use, right, to inject into somebody who.
Once you're trained in it,
right,
you could administer it.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to reverse the effects of the overdose
of the
hopefully
opiate drug,
right, and
opiate-based drugs.
save the life of the person. Right, that's the idea.
Narcan is the pardon the expression, street name for it.
Okay, right.
It cancels out the opiate. And I actually, and I believe I said this during the other show, Senator Ball had a roundtable, and I went to that on the opiate addiction. And after the opiate addiction seminar, or the roundtable, I got certified in Narcan myself.
Oh.
They actually
so
had
you could administer it.
I could administer it, and I carry it. I have the little blue bag, and I have it with me. I don't have it with me in here today, but I do have it with me.
Right. And one other quick thing, which the director's going to give me the old sign, but again, hopefully this is a positive direction in terms of addressing it through law enforcement, is that they want to make stricter laws so that criminal possession of a controlled substance, which is now a misdemeanor, which sometimes I don't get it, but and so they want to make stricter laws with that. Maybe it would be a felony. I don't know what the nomenclature would be, but
that would be the next step up from
make it a felony, right?
Yeah,
I'm saying,
There's different classifications of misdemeanors, but and which hold different penalty times and fines and so forth. But the next step up from that would be felony. Yes.
Right. Anyhow, so I want to thank, as the credits start to roll, from the Yorktown Citizens Task Force Against Heroin, the chair, Yorktown Councilman Tom Diana, and the co-chair, Mike Reda. And again, go to the Facebook page, Yorktown Against Heroin, Yorktown Citizens Task Force Against Heroin, and there's a lot more information there. You've been doing a great job with that, Mike, by the way. And you'll see about the meetings that you can attend. You don't have to be from Yorktown. You could be from anywhere, because unfortunately the problem crosses everybody's borders. So thank you for watching Hudson Valley WXYZ with Bruce the Blog. And remember, when Bruce the Blog listens, people talk. Thank you.